cannot believe how hot it is now.
Yeah, it's hot in here.
It's not that hot. Okay, go.
Yes, it is. It's getting hot.
I admire my dad's ability to strike up a conversation with anyone, anytime, anywhere. True?
Thank you.
I love my dad's silly sense of humor and the fact that he laughs at his own jokes.
Someone has to.
Originally I had stupid, silly sense of humor, but that got edited out
Thank you.
because I have the same sense of humor.
True.
I love many of my dad's stories, but my favorite, by far, is a story about hitchhiking to Cuba.
Oh yeah, that's a classic.
That's a story for the ages.
Oh, yeah. Yes, thank you very much. I don't know that story.
Huh?
I don't either.
Well, to explain the story, I didn't quite hitchhike to Cuba because there are very few vehicles that could cross over to Cuba.
That's what Rebecca just said.
And the one car I had, I gave to Ellen. That was the only one that could make the trip.
You hitchhiked to Miami
From Miami, right. And back.
by yourself
By
That's
myself.
a separate story.
No, no, going,
with your friend.
I went with my friend David. But coming back,
Yourself.
to those grandchildren who haven't heard the story, I'm sure you have.
Don't try this at home.
I came back by myself. I wasn't planning on it.
What's amazing is that
I landed, I had a plane ticket, Pan Am, and I landed in Miami, Florida with less than $1 in my pocket. So I made it all the way home, and I still had 7 cents to my name.
And how did Grandma Pat? What did she have to say when you got
A
home?
little disturbed. to say the least.
What about me?
Yeah, right. How could you be so stupid? Why did you call?
how she
I
let
was
you
trying
go
to
is
prove a
beyond-
point that I could make it all the way back
And you did.
with the money I had.
And you did.
But the most
You didn't tell them where they
the
were
most
going.
frightening experience that I had
Come back with him.
was I got a ride. It was very difficult if you've ever thumbed a ride, which you haven't. And that is to get out of an airport. Very difficult. So I finally got a ride out of the airport, and then I was on the highway, and I thumbed, and finally a guy picks me up, and originally he was going to go to Indianapolis, and then he changed his mind, and he decided he was going to go a different route, so he dropped me off in the Smoky Mountains at about 1 o'clock in the morning. Not a light in the area. And if you excuse the expression, I had dysentery from Cuba. And I wasn't very happy. So I put my thumb out. There were very few cars, and even if a car came by, he could never see me. I had no reflective gear on, so I thought, this is it. The bears are going to get me, no doubt about it. So finally, I'm thumbing a ride, and the car comes, and the car goes ahead and puts his brakes on. So, oh, thank God, my prayers have been answered. I run over the car. The minute the guy talked, I said, I got a problem. The guy says, any place I can take you, buddy? So either I get in the car with the drunk, or I continue to stay down in the Smoky
You
Mountains
gotta roll the dice.
at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I figure I'll roll my dice. So I get in the car with the guy. About 5 minutes later, I says, "Let me buy you a cup of coffee." Now, coffee in those days were a
So
dime.
you had $1.
I didn't have that much money.
You get by yourself.
So I bought him a cup of coffee. He says, have more coffee, more coffee. Hopefully he'll sober up. So finally he drove me all the way in Indianapolis. So he dropped me off in Indianapolis, started thumbing again, and a family picked me up with 2 kids, and they weren't familiar with Chicago at all. So I told them where I lived, and I was grubby, and I was just miserable. I was sick. They dropped me off, and I'll never forget it. They probably thought I lived in something. My folks had just bought our house on 83rd Street. It was a nice neighborhood, and they probably figured, why is this guy? Why does he look
How
like
old were you
this?
at the time?
21.
about 20, 21. And so they dropped me off. I'll never forget it. My mother took one look at me and said, how stupid could you be? Not that she was happy to see me, but how stupid could you be? So I made it back, and I guess I proved the point, that you can survive if you
Thank you.
make up your mind. But there were times there that I never thought I was ever going to make it. But when you're alone, when I was hitchhiking down to Florida, I was with a friend, and it wasn't so bad because we were together, and we had unusual rides. I had one ride for a couple of hours in a hearse,
Oh, what?
well, funeral car.
No, I heard.
Oh, that hurt.
And the guy, he made us sit in the back.
Oy.
Well, you can imagine you're driving behind a hearse and you see two heads bobbing up and down. You figure, I think they made a mistake. The guy's not dead. And then another truck driver picked us up, and he says, I can get a lot of trouble for this, and we're not supposed to pick up hitchhikers. So you got to kind of crouch down. So an hour and a half, we're all crouched down. And then another couple picked us up.
If one of you boys did it,
And
Right.
it was the biggest mistake I ever made. It wasn't that
Did
they
you go to
were.
their house?
Pardon?
You went to somebody's house.
Yeah, well, that was the first ride. The guy picked us. He was an iron worker, and he was coming
His
home
wife
to
cheated.
to Kentucky. He was going to surprise his wife,
She was in bed.
and he showed up, and I guess the wife didn't expect him,
Oh dear.
and yada yada da, and there was quite a scene, and it happened to be his best friend. And he wasn't mad at his wife, he was mad at his best friend.
You were there at the time?
I was there at the time. The guy's, I'll never forget, the guy's name was Red. So, Red, how can you do this? So he says, come on, get in the car. Put the kids in the car, and he drove me out of town. I got another ride. And this couple, all they talked about, everything was cotton picking. Where do you live? Oh, that cotton picking city. Cotton picking this, cotton picking that. Ad nausea, everything was cotton picking.
Stop taking that.
Yeah, and well, then we finally made it. Of course, the story.
He's here.
I'm here.
You made it.
I wouldn't recommend it to anybody, and I don't think anybody here would ever allow their children to hitchhike.
Yeah, but did you just say, okay,
No
we're
one
gonna
would pick up a
go to
hitchhiker
Florida,
either.
We're gonna hitchhike to
Cuba.
get there?
Cuba was a destination.
Cuba was, well, actually.